Alright, today we have a special treat. Now, this artist is a local artist from the DFW area, but she also has artwork in Houston, San Francisco, short while in New York, and many other museums and galleries. If you like Linda Ridgway's work, she has a wonderful website out. Now, that being said, I'll just come out and straight out tell you, Linda Ridgway is aka my mother. So, now, why would I do my mother? Well, first of all, she's also head of the department at Cedar Valley Community College, and a lot of students absolutely just love taking her classes. So by doing this, this also helps people be aware of who she is. One of the things a lot of people who are younger that take art classes sometimes will stay away from the older teachers because they feel like there's not going to be a connection. But there's one thing to understand about an older professor. They have been teaching for a long time, and generally they know a lot more than a younger professor that might be hip and cool. So just wanted to throw that out there. So she is one of the best treasures that Cedar Valley has in the program. And it's been a pleasure the whole time working with her. And as I've grown to become a stronger and stronger instructor, I use her for guidance a lot of ways. So it's nice to go to school and work, but it's also kind of nice to see your mom and know that she is proud of what you're doing. So, but it's also interesting having your mom as your boss. So on that note, now. So for Linda Ridgway, she is a sculptor, printmaker, and a drawer in her work. She has a gallery in the Dallas area, Talley Dunn Gallery. It's one of the top galleries in Dallas. If you want to see some big name artists, some of the artists that I've even gone through in this lesson for this class, there will be artists in that gallery that you can actually physically see their piece. And if you set an appointment up with the gallery director, her name is Beth Taylor, not related to me, but she is a very sweet lady that can show you a piece, and she's more than happy to show a piece. Even if you're not going to buy something, sometimes it's about just seeing it and understanding it, because who knows, if they're nice to you then, you might win the lottery tomorrow and you come in and you'll actually buy that piece you wanted to see. So you never know who walks through the door, and a gallery is a business, but I would check out her gallery if you live in the DFW area, and one of her shows too that's amazing. Now I'm going to run through her work. This should not be that long of a lesson, but I'm also going to kind of talk about who she is and what's her work about on a personal note, because a lot of people that see her work doesn't understand her work as well as I do, because I know the backstory, so which is kind of a luxury for you guys that are seeing her work for the first time. Now, there are some videos. I'd like you to click on the videos and just see it now. It's a lot of her talking, and I think you'll see some similar personality traits in her vocabulary and my vocabulary. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, here she is at Flatbed, actually this is at UNT, but this is Kathy Brinberry, again the owner of Flatbed Press, working with her on a gigantic print that they're working on. There is a video for this, and you can actually see the process of them working on it when you click on the video, which is kind of neat. And so anyway, click on the video below. Now, here's one of her shows, and I think this was 2004 4, I believe. The title of the show is Wild. This is her heirloom. Now, what is this piece about? Well, this piece is about all of her work has a personal nature to it, has some kind of a personal touch. She doesn't want to describe it right off the bat. Some of that is her voice in the art, but she doesn't really want her voice to be the only subject matter for the art. Now, it's a tablecloth that floats in the air. It is made out of solid metal. It's made out of bronze. It weighs about 300 pounds. It is very heavy, and it's hung with industrial fishing wire. And so when you walk into the space, this piece floats. Okay, now, for a lot of people that don't understand how to make bronze, we're getting ready to go into sculpture, and you're going to get to see classifications about bronze. Bronze is typically a very heavy, bulky object, and Linda turns and makes it into more of a light, ethereal, and it's almost people are amazed who are in this industry that do sculpture are amazed of how delicate and durable her bronzes are, and so anyway, so what's this piece about? Well, it's a tablecloth. Now, the tablecloth is missing a little portion in the and my godmother had given this to her and to do something with. She didn't know what she was going to do. She thought she was just going to print it up. I don't think my godmother realized she was going to make a sculpture and put it in her New York show. And all of a sudden, she looked at it, and the piece in the corner was missing. Well, during that year, my grandfather passed away. And he was one of those kinds of guys that he never really liked sitting at the head of the table, so he kind of sits at the side of the table. So the way this is positioned, she basically sets it up in the space where her father would sit, and he had passed away, so that portion of the table is missing. So it's got this kind of sadness to it in some ways, but it's also got this kind of remembrance, and it's got a beauty that's there as well. Behind that piece are 2 of her drawings as well. Here's a close-up of it. You can see, and the way she does this is like putting a giant puzzle together, and then she welds and solders everything together. She puts what we call a white coat of paint, and then she melts it into the metal with a blowtorch, and that's called a patina. Sometimes you might see sculptures with a greenish tone. That's a green patina. But this piece, she's doing a white patina. Now, here is, this piece is called Husband. It was in the same show. Now, this piece is related to her partner now, Harry Geffert, who has taught her how to do all of her sculpture. They've been together forever, it seems like, and there's a wonderful relationship that they have. He casts her sculptures. She helps, of course, as well, but and she works in his studio space on the weekends, and then he works, and then she comes home and works on her other studio space. She has 2 studio spaces. She has 1 studio for drawing and 1 studio for sculpture, which allows her to kind of take her brain and go into one world, and then take the other brain and take her brain and go into another world. Now, what this piece is about is this was kind of a trip that the 2 of them had planned, and they went to Ireland. And when they got to Ireland, they like to stay in little cute, quaint bed and breakfasts. And so Harry's a little bit older than my mom, and I'm not going to give out the ages of the 2, but they're older. They're senior citizens, and so this is kind of like their honeymoon, going to Ireland. And when they went to Ireland, they noticed something really quite interesting. When you tell people in hotels and bed and breakfasts that at your honeymoon, it's tradition to put a thistle branch on the man's pillow. And the reason is it's supposed to agitate and irritate the man, so he stays awake and he does his honeymoon duties, basically, so to speak, which is kind of weird talking about your mom that way. but and so when they saw that, they kind of started chuckling and laughing because yeah, they're older, so they thought that portion, you know, it's not as hot and heavy as it would be for a 20-year-old. So Mom immediately had to take that, and she's like, I got to make an art piece out of it. So the pillow is made out of bronze, and the thistle branch is made out of bronze as well. And the thistle branch really does look like a piece of it's hard to believe it's metal when you look at it. And so when she came back from Ireland, she had it in a little plastic baggie, and the security at the airport almost didn't let her get through with it because you're not supposed to bring any perishables back, but she begged them to let her have it. And then the funny thing is, she was like, I'm an artist, and she pointed outside, and one of her sculptures was right outside the window, and so she goes, I made that outside. And the security guard looked at her and thought, okay. And she said, literally in an hour, I'm going to be melting it down, turning it into bronze. And the guy was like, okay, just take it. And so he let her have it, which I'm shocked. And so it's kind of interesting how that kind of stuff, you can get away with murder, I think, when you get a little bit older sometimes. And so this piece really was a crowd pleaser. These are conversations, so this is called The Conversation. This is a conversation where her and him were fighting, and he said that pink is weak, just like Picasso did, and then she turns around and goes, well, is blue strong? And that to me is really kind of interesting, because you never heard any of the other artists say anything like back at Picasso like that. So now this is a crochet that is metal. It's not none of the things. I know they look like they're fabric, they once were, but she turns them into metal, and that's what's so amazing about her stuff and the delicateness of it. But it's also super strong. It's not, I mean, if you dropped it, it might bend it, but it won't break. And so, but what's also important is notice the shadows. The shadows of her work are, in her opinion, as just as important as the sculpture itself. Okay? If the shadows aren't right, then the sculpture for her does not work. And so she constantly investigates how the light is shown onto the art piece, how it's installed is very important to her as well. Now, this one is she, and she, okay? And this was a show called Between, okay? This is probably one of my favorite shows that she did, and the next one is also one of my favorites. But this one, she went on a personal note. The first show, While, was a conversation between her and Harry. Now this piece is a conversation between my daughter, who's her oldest grandchild, and it's the only daughter in the family. My mother had 2 brothers, and then she had 2 sons, and then I had a daughter, and my mom loves to spoil my daughter, and she does. And here's a perfect example of that. For our baptism, she said, I want to buy the bonnet, but I want to keep the bonnet after it's done. And we didn't know what she was going to do with it. And so it was a beautiful bonnet. I think she got it at Neiman Marcus. It was expensive. It was all get up, I know. And so this is a bonnet that my daughter was baptized in. And then we gave her the bonnet. and then she turned it into bronze. And this piece was shown but was never for sale. My mother decided that the person that should own this piece is my daughter, and so when she gets the age of 18, this piece will become available for her to pick up at the gallery. But when you look at it, it says she, and she all around that ribbon. And so what this is talking about is the conversation between her and her mom, or let me make that clear, Linda and her mom, and Linda and her granddaughter. And so she's saying it's a generation of women on her side that have come together. And so it's kind of a piece to understand for her that is not for the public to really get. And I'm giving you a lot more than what most people see when they understand this piece. And so they think it's kind of a beautiful headdress, and it has been wanting to be sold. People are a big fan of this piece, but it's already set for my daughter, so which is nice. I think she'll really appreciate that when it's time to receive it. Now, here's a boy's will. Okay, now this is something that's interesting. This show for her is a conversation between myself, my brother, my biological brother, and I have an art brother who he's not related to me, but he's actually the next artist that we're going to be talking about. He's been part of my life, and I consider him like an older brother. And then I have also an art older sister, and I think between all, and the pictures you're seeing have been taken by my older sister. She's a professional photographer. So when you look at all these pieces here in this show, and it's also got a little portion of my wife, and I think the dress that you're seeing here is for my wife. And before my daughter came, my wife was the only female in the family on this side, and everybody loves my wife. And my mother-in-law and I get along, and my mom and my wife get along, and I'm just, you hear people all the time talk about their families and how they have their in-laws and how they can't stand. Nicole and I are very blessed that we love our families. So this dress, I believe, is truly made for my wife, because it kind of looks like my wife. It kind of sets up, and it's almost about the same height as my wife in some aspects. Now, when I look at it, it's made completely out of bronze. And this was a gift that was given to her by one of her collectors. It came from Neiman Marcus. It was a very expensive dress. So when she turns it into bronze, she wanted to make sure she didn't mess up, and she did a wonderful job. Now this one doesn't have the white ink or the white paint put into the metal. This time it has a graphite ink, so it has almost like a drawing, like pencil like feel, and this is something that she invented when she did this process. No other artist is using graphite ink to make a patina, and that gives her work a kind of a special quality to it. So it's called the Perfect Six. Alright. And so when you look at it, everything about it just fits super nice. It's got little tiny roses all throughout it. It's all crocheted. And it's about, I'd say, 80 to 100 pounds. And it holds by 2 fishing line wires. And so it's amazing that how much weight that can hold and how it holds it so well. So here's another close-up. You can see all the little detail. Now, this is one of the things about my mom that's interesting. This piece is called For Harper, and this is for Harper Lee. If you're a fan of To Kill a Mockingbird, that's who this is about. And she put a quote from To Kill a Mockingbird. and I normally can read it when it's on the board, but I forgot I can't read it with this the way it's set up right now. But when if you zoom in, you might be able to read it. It's one of the lines in the book. I think it's the beginning intro, if I'm not mistaken. It might, or the last line. I can't remember. Now, what's interesting about this piece, To Kill a Mockingbird is one of those stories that in our family it's very important. My mom, I think she kind of feels like growing up, she was Scout as a kid and taking care of her brothers, and so for her, that character Scout really resonates as personal to her. And when we were kids, and every year around Thanksgiving time, we'd always watch To Kill a Mockingbird. If you've never seen the movie, it's probably one of my top 10 favorite movies ever. It's just one of those that, to me, it's a nostalgic thing because it reminds me of times when I was with my mom as a kid, and so here, when you look at this, okay, piece, this is supposed to be a pillow, and why would she do a pillow? Well, for her, one of the best things to do when you read is lay your head on a pillow and read, and hopefully maybe fall asleep at night, or just get comfortable with a book and get lost in its words. And so here, she's trying to make this pillow that she believes that Harper Lee would probably lay their head on. So now, I think she gave this pillow to Harper Lee as a gift, and just as a thank you in some ways. And so I'm not 100% sure on that, who owns this piece. Now, each pillow that you're going to be seeing, some of them have relationships between her and her sons, and you'll see as we keep going. So here's a detail, and that is all solid metal. That is not a real pillow. Okay, Red Bird is a poem. Now, she reads a lot of poem. When you're in her house is full of poetry books on the bookshelves, and throughout the house as well. She loves poetry. She loves these little lines. She listens and tries to understand phrases in poetry that might relate to her art, and so Red Bird is one of the ones that really kind of resonates for her. Now, I love this pillow. I love the delicateness of it, and she silk screened the poem onto a piece of like a cheesecloth material, and then she put it inside the pillow once it's complete, once all the bronze and patina has been completed. For Ezra, okay. Now inside, the book is inside this pillow, and I don't know how she did this piece. The book, she welded it all together and didn't mess up the book at all. So somehow she has these tricks underneath her sleeve how to do things, and she did a great job with this one. Now this one's a little bit, almost kind of like it's closed and very tough. So I think when she's reading these books and thinking about these pillows, she's trying to think, does it relate to the artist as well? A Boy's Will. Now this is a Robert Frost book, and so that's the title of the whole show. And I kind of think this one, she's trying to put the delicateness of me, my brothers, in this one pillow, and because it has a masculine but a feminine at the same time, and even with my older sister, it has that kind of feel. The way that the book has been cut out line by line and then placed into the middle of the pillow is a reference to my older brother. He used to fold and do these little tiny folds of pages for books for his sculptures, and that's a straight correlation for her and his work. And so there's these little tiny messages that we see but the mass public doesn't. And so we know it's a conversation between us. And so for you guys, this is kind of good. You guys get to see the inside of the artist. Like, and even reporters that are reporting on her, I mean, they only have a certain amount of time to talk about a person, and they can't get all the nuts and bolts. But for me and others that know her, we can kind of get in there and really give you a good insight on it. So here, okay, here's a hand pillow for Miss Stein, and again, these are all very delicate, and this one, it's so super ornate, and it's almost impossible that those strings are made out of metal the way she does it. Now, here's the C and the bells. This pillow is a very tiny little pillow. I mean, it's like 4 inches by 4 inches. And inside this pillow, this one is a straight out conversation between her and my little brother. And this piece, I really do believe it connects super well, because this poem that's inside there is an early poems when my brother was in high school, I believe, or might have been even grade school, 8th grade. He got a poem published, and so this is one of his poems inside this pillow, and so she's again, kind of paying reference to my brother in this as well, and my brother has this in his house at the moment. Now, the 3 dresses. Now, this is another, again, relationship piece between her and my brother in this, for sure. When you look at these pieces, these are all hand drawn. Now, what she does is she inks up a fabric or dress and then runs it through the press, and then she does a very light inking where it's barely there, and then she goes back in with graphite pencils and draws all the fabric and all the details. Now, where did she get this idea? Well, my brother does all these little mockette costumes out of a very cheap material. It's fairly light and lacy, or not lacy, but light and just thin and transparent in some aspects, and he puts it on the model, or his, not model, but his actor, and he's a costume designer, and so he takes the clothes and he puts it onto the subject, and the subject wears it, and he tailors it from those moquettes. And some shows he has to do 30 to 40 people, it seems like. And so what he's trying to do is he makes all these little dresses to fit the models that are in the style that he needs, or the actors, and then they wear it, and he has a move in it and make sure it fits and the cut's right. And then after he's done, he makes the actual costume from it. And so he usually has these all the time in his car, and this was a time where he had a bunch of them in the car, and he needed room as they're going out someplace, and he was throwing them in the trash, and my mom immediately grabbed him and said, "I can make an art piece out of these." And so she made these drawings, these 4 foot by 6 foot drawings, and they just float from the air, and they're just beautiful. Here's the titles of them. So all those details and that depth and that value you see is all hand drawn. So here's the next one. This almost looks like a flower. Now, a show, the Alice show, was the next one. Now, this one was a really tough show for my mom. This one is a show dealing with the past. My grandmother died of breast cancer, and during this show, my mother was going through breast cancer treatments and radiation. And so she did a whole show that was related to her past, basically. And so her work has like a very dated kind of feel. Feels like something from the past. And she titled it Alice because the Alice in Wonderland looking through the looking glass. She kind of put this kind of spin that when you have cancer, a door opens, and your only way to get through the what I would consider the cancer door is to go through it. And what happens in Alice in Wonderland when you go through the door? She falls down a rabbit hole, okay? And then once she gets to that Wonderland, it's survival. It's not an enjoyment place, and it's chaotic and it's crazy. And so to have this idea, for me personally, when I looked at this work, it's mom going through the cancer door, falling down the rabbit hole, and trying to get out and come to the other side and go back to life like it was before you went. But as you go through the rabbit hole, your life is never the same. And I believe the same things with cancer. Once you have cancer, your life's never the same. So I truly believe here this work is about that. Now, she's never once came out and quote unquote said what I just said there. This is just an interpretation, and it's just something I see as being her son, and I can see these things. So I'll go through the pieces here. Now the next one is it's an apron, and again, this is another piece my brother made for her, specifically for the show. And here she's trying to show this apron. Now, my grandmother wore an apron almost every day when she was cooking and doing all her stuff for the house chores and walking around the house. And so she's talking about this idea back in the day where women wore aprons on a regular. Nowadays, some women wear aprons only when they cook, sometimes on that. And so this piece is about that. Now we get to Pete Mondrian. Okay, we talked about this artist. Now here's a reference piece that she made, and it says down there, I think I can read this. I have never painted romantically, but from the very beginning I was always a realist. Even at this time, I dislike particular movements such as people in action. I enjoyed painting flowers and not bonnets. What do you call it? Bouquets, sorry. But a single flower at a time in order that makes better expressed in plastic structure. So here she's kind of taking this quote that was done by Mondrian, but then she's even paying a little nod to him with the blue in the Mondrian, and so this piece is kind of if you're a historical fan, you like the history of art, she's kind of trying to tug at your heartstrings a little bit on this. Now, like I said, in my opinion, and to many others, Pete Mondrian is probably the top 3 artists for most people. So she's kind of paying tribute to Mondrian in this piece. And if you're going to think if this is going to be on a quiz, you'd be correct. I'll probably be, who artist is she referencing about? So write that down. Okay, the anniversary. Okay, now here she is trying to do kind of a relationship piece between her and Harry. Now this piece they're both made out of bronze, but the gold color is gold leaf with 24 karat gold leaf. So it's an expensive gold. Even though it's gold leaf, it's really hardy. And inside the gold leaf, you can see there's a little wedding band. Now, Harry and my mom have never married formally, but everyone's just kind of accepted that they are married, and because of common law, they've been together for so long. I think they've been together longer than 20 years. So, and that, so at that point, you're pretty much married. And so here, she puts a wedding band inside the mixture. Harry doesn't wear rings or any jewelry, so this is kind of like an homage to him to, say we're married, but this piece is between the both of us. She also did a series of flowers that were blue, and after she did the Pete Mondrian piece, this blue series started coming out. Now, if you remember me talking about Mondrian's tree, the first tree, it had this variety of blues in it, and that's what she's kind of doing. Each one of the flower stems has a variety of different blues, and when put onto the metal, it has this vibrancy and it stands out, and it has almost like this mixture of color. The next part is With or Without You. This is our most recent show. This show, I believe, is kind of there's some parts in here that relate to me and my son in some aspects. And then there's another piece that kind of relates to my brother in this piece. That is a really strong correlation between his own personal issues that he goes through, and I'll explain as we go into this. But there's also some interesting moments in this, so we'll get into this series here. Okay, this one's called Little Bear. Now, this piece, my mom, when growing up, she would read a book to us called Little Bear. I forgot who the artist is, but it's a very famous book series, and I loved it as a kid. I loved the illustrations. Now, being a child that had trouble reading, and still even as an adult having trouble reading, for me, the illustrations were more important than the actual words in the book. I'm an auditory learner. That's why, if you notice, I am doing this completely auditory. For most people that take this class, auditory might not be the best way, I understand, but some of you that have trouble reading and writing, and a lot of artists have trouble reading and writing, that's why we're on the over creative side a lot of times. And so for this piece, Little Bear was one of those that I just loved the illustrations, and so she was reading the book to my my son Quentin, and she loved the reaction that he got was very similar to the same reaction that I got. Now, so she decided to make an art piece with a bear and one of these little bonsai trees. The moment I saw this piece, I loved it. I just love the whole idea, and I love the trees, and I'm very happy it found a good home, but part of me kind of wish I had the money to buy it and just buy it. Now, a lot of you are like, well, why does your mom just make it for you? Well, A, it costs a lot of money to just make it, and B, it's one of those things when you get one of these sculptures, it takes a lot of time, and for her, her time is very valuable trying to sell art, but I do have some of her sculptures. I have a print that's in my house right now. I tend to have more prints than sculptures. Now, this piece, Wonder, I straight out told her, I said, if this doesn't sell, I want this piece. And so I love these little bonsai trees. It has a very geometric shapes to it, and it's very building based. And I really do believe this piece is a relationship between me and her. When I was younger, in my teens and even my 20s, I would do a lot of gardening and planting. I worked for a landscape company, and I fell in love with the idea of a tree growing, and when I'd start putting down a plant, coming back to it a few months later, seeing how much the yard had changed, to me it was always one of those things that it just kind of evolves and gets better. At first it's sometimes in order, but it's not it's not beautiful yet. But then as you give things time, it starts to grow, and it develops into something quite wonderful. And I kind of feel that these trees are kind of a conversation between me and her, and also they're very geometric, and my work is very form and function, dealing with architectural and high contrast of black and white, and these are solid black trees. So I don't know if that is the case between these, but I kind of feel that this is a piece, and I kind of talked a lot about these with her. So now this piece is a piece that, again, my brother was making this dress, and he had it in the not dress. This is a jacket, and he didn't know if the lead character was going to be a male or female. So he started setting up the jacket for a male or female, and then he was just going to adjust either side or pull the seams to make it for a male. But I think he thought it was going to be for a female. So he had half the jacket in male form and half the jacket in female form. And my mom saw this in his studio and had to have it. And so that's one of the things, when Mom wants something, we kind of just go, okay, take it. And so, but this right here is basically, the name of it is the alter ego for Marcel Duchamp, okay? And he would pretend to be a woman at times, and he would show up at art galleries as a woman, and people would be this confused, like, who is this person? And then but then it's just kind of this alter personality. And so for this piece, I also believe this is a piece that deals with people having trouble with their own identity in a lot of ways. And my brother, he came out of the closet, so to speak. Has a lovely partner. We love him dearly, and they're just a great couple, the two of them together, and he's truly happy. And I think for a while he had that kind of issue too, where he didn't know who he was, what he was about, and this piece is kind of relating to that as well. The veil, again, this is another kind of piece that's relating to my daughter as well. Again, this is a drawing. This one was also, this one was also a drawing as well. This is not; these are printed on and then hand drawn. I love this. I love the details and the textures on this. Now here is one of her nest pieces. Now the nest, she loves going to nature and finding these little gems, and when she finds a nest, she typically takes the nest in wintertime when the nest has been left behind. She never takes an active nest. She leaves those alone. She just keeps an eye on them, and when the birds are gone and they move south for the winter, that's when she takes the nest. And when she turns these into bronze, these are like the biggest puzzle you've ever had to put together. She wants to get every piece back together as she found it, and it takes her months to put one of these nests together. They're small, but it's amazing. People I don't think realize how much detail goes into these. And inside here, she put a little golden robin's egg inside of it. Now these are her cutout drawings. She sometimes will ink up the lace, and then she will draw back into them, and before she sends it off to the framer, she cuts out the opening negative space, and she only cuts 3 sides and allows the folded part to lift up into a direction that gives this piece a sense of movement. And you can see that the white is facing one direction and the gray is facing another. Here's a close-up. And you can see how the little openings, these are a crowd favorite. She made, like, I think 7 of these, and her assistant, that's all he does is cut he just cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts those. It takes about a month of straight cutting. And so she hires assistants to help her to get things done so she can work on our sculptures. She does all the drawing and goes, okay, here you go, cut it out. So it's very painful and very meticulous to do. Now here's a video of the of at the sculpture center that she at the Nasher. Now I wanted to. She's the first local female artist to ever be in their permanent collection, and she's and that's a big deal for her. And she also gave a lecture and a talk, and I have the video. I'm going to put the video up, and for me personally, it's one of those moments where when I was watching her talk and looking at the crowd, it was kind of it's neat to see, because I think sometimes people are a little confused on her work. I get it, but I grew up with it, and so and I loved watching the light bulbs click when people did it. And they also, the Nasher Sculpture Center did a wonderful video of her, and I'll also have that posted. It's also on her website. If you go to her website, there's more videos on her website. All right. And also and more information. So if you ever like an artist, try just Google search it and see if they have a website. You'll be surprised how much background and how much stories you can find just off of their website. Now here, okay, is another one of her video. This is a quick little video of walking through the space. So this is somebody that just went through with a camera. I have no clue who it is. It's just a rogue person. Just when I Google search YouTube her name, this was someone's video that they posted about her. She has tons of fans, and it's to her, she sometimes doesn't feel like she's as famous as she is, but to the Dallas public area and the art people in the community here, she's one of our favorite hidden gems. And besides being my mother, of course. I'm almost trying to act like she's not my mother, which is kind of hard at times. Now, here, okay, she's going to talk about these two pieces. Now, what's great about the gallery is if you ever go to one of the openings, you get free liquor. They do beer and wine, so you get your free drink on, and sometimes some snacks, depending on the gallery. And they do these what we call artist talks, where the artists will come out and talk about their work for about 10-15 minutes. So I want you to watch this video, and you can kind of see again her personality, but she's going to really talk about the bear piece, and she's going to talk about the jacket, and it'll make more sense to hear it come from the artist's mouth than my mouth. So, and This is the last piece, and it's just one of the things I tell a lot of artists, what makes her a success is when you buy an art piece. Now her art pieces can range from $6,000 to some of them $80,000-$100,000 pieces, and it doesn't matter if you bought a little piece or a big piece. Knowing that you loved her work, she writes a thank you letter for every piece that she sells. And you'd be surprised how many artists don't write a thank you letter. And that to me was a big learning point, where I realized if I sell something and I write a thank you letter, I can almost guarantee they're going to come to my next show and they might purchase another piece. And it's something as a simple gesture as just saying thank you. That's it. And so she did this one piece on the show between where it's thank you and it's kind of falling off. Okay? So, on that note, we'll be talking about Sean Smith next. Click on that video below. Alright, see you on the next one.